Welcome to Skills Without Borders podcast, where we are dedicated to share skills needed to break career barriers for health, STEM, and public health professionals worldwide. Hello, I'm your host, Dr. Andrea Clark, and we have a special guest with us today, Miss Vicki Hamilton, who is the founder of Recoil Knee Pad. She's also a product design engineer, teaching and enterprise fellow, and an entrepreneur in residence. She is originally from Scotland, but currently she is teaching and residing in Brisbane, Australia. So I would like to send you a warm welcome, Vicki, to our Skills Without Border podcast. And I am so happy and elated to bring you on to our platform to introduce you to our global audience. How are you today?
I am good, Andrea. Thank you very much for having me along. Looking forward to chatting with you and discussing some of the things that we were mentioning earlier.
Fantastic. Can you tell us, how did you get at this point of taking your engineering skill sets and knowledge in that knee pad space and also opening new opportunities for yourself?
Yeah, so my background is in product design engineering, and when I was a kid I was always very creative and I always liked art and design, but I also was quite mathematical and I enjoyed science and physics. And then I just kind of came across this course called product design engineering, and I just thought it was the perfect mix of creativity, coming up with sketches and model making, but also with the problem solving of engineering and physics, and the question of, well, how is it actually going to work in reality? So I'd found that course just when I was about to kind of go to university, and I thought I'll go and study that. So I went and studied product design engineering, and then just throughout the 5 years that I was studying that course, I'd always liked the idea of starting a business, but I never really knew what I could do. And then my final year uni project, the way that course was structured was basically it took everything that you'd learned over the last 5 years and got you to identify a problem and then develop a physical product-based solution to that problem. And my problem was it started with my dad, because he is a carpenter. He's got arthritis in his knees, and he had said to me, could you design me some new knee pads that I can use at work? So that was kind of the problem that I was trying to solve, was solving my dad's knee pain. And then I applied basically everything that I'd learned over the 5 years studying that course, the creativity, the problem solving, the maths, physics, etc. Came up with this solution, which is basically a knee pad that uses springs. So the kind of idea behind it is car suspension system, but for your knees. So yeah, it was just, I guess, kind of a bit of creativity, looking around about me to see what else other solutions existed in other applications, and then just using all the kind of knowledge and skills that I'd learned over the last 5 years and that creative flair to come up with a solution. And that's kind of what's, I guess, propelled me into the world of entrepreneurship and where I now am today, kind of 15, 16 years later.
Wow. Thank you so much for kind of giving us that background and that information. I think you're fantastic. I think when I think of the bravery, I think of Vicki. So, we met last summer in Africa, and you were out, just kind of enjoying your summer, exploring different parts of the world, and most of all, giving back in very meaningful ways.
Yeah.
Listening to your story at that time, I was really impressed by your bravery, your creativity, your intelligence, and just all the things that encompasses who you are. As I continue to learn more about you, I just learned that not only as an entrepreneur and as an engineer, but you're also a risk taker, right? So I think that goes hand in hand when it comes to entrepreneurship. So, as you know, your podcast is entitled Stepping Out of the Dark. I want to really hone in and talk to you about your adventures in climbing Kilimanjaro in a way that's such a powerful metaphor for the entrepreneurial track and what people try to do in the process of creating business. So, Vicki, how did that experience of climbing Kilimanjaro, how did that experience shape your perspective on uncertainty in both life and your entrepreneurial endeavors?
So it was 2 years ago now that I climbed Kilimanjaro, and Yeah, so I mean, my background kind of, I was always quite sporty, and I always was interested in sport, but I was never really like that good at sport. Like there was nothing that I was like, you know, you always get like the kid in the class that's like the fastest and wins every race, or you get someone that's just really good at basketball or whatever. But I was never really good at any particular sport. I just enjoyed it. And sport has always been like quite a big part of my life. During the stresses, I guess, of like starting a business, it did kind of maybe get pushed a little bit back and kind of took a back seat. But in the last few years, I've found a bit more balance between like having a business, running a business, and making sure I prioritise things I'm interested in, such as sport. So Kilimanjaro for me was like this big kind of like physical challenge that I wanted to set myself. And basically, like, I've taken a lot of the stuff that I've learned from the world of entrepreneurship and then kind of applied it in the way that I tackle some of these challenges. So, like, for example, when we were climbing Kilimanjaro, the night that you attempt the summit, so I did the 5-day trek. So day 4, we'd hiked all through the day, and then so we had like 8 hours of hiking. And then you got to the base camp and you had like a 1 hour kind of rest, and then we had a brief of like, right, this is what tonight is going to entail when we attempt to get to like the summit. And I was like, right, okay. And then we had dinner, and then we got back to our tents and had like another 1 hour rest, and then that was us back up, and it was like, right, we're going for this. So we started hiking, I think like at 9:30 p.m, and then we hiked like all through the night, and the goal was to get to the summit of Kilimanjaro for sunrise. And I remember like being at base camp and looking up at this mountain, which like still, the summit just still looked so far away. And, you know, you'd climbed for a couple of days already, and I'm standing there looking up at it being like, that looks far and that looks very, very steep. Yeah. But anyway, like we set off in the middle of the night, and it was like really cold, pitch black. And we're hiking away, and you zigzag up it because it is like really quite steep, and the soil is like really kind of gravelly, so it's quite slippy. So you kind of zigzag up the mountain. And I remember as we were walking up to it, you just saw like these lines of like head torches all the way up the top of the mountain. And I thought, right, okay, just keep going, just walk. And as the hours ticked by, I think it probably was one of the most kind of like mentally enduring tasks challenges I've ever taken on. Just that, like looking up and being like, oh, it's still so far to go, but just keep going. Yeah. And eventually, like halfway through the night, my kind of strategy changed, and like I reflect back on like what I'd learned from the world of entrepreneurship, and that if you always like look at like, if you fixate on just the end goal and you don't like break it down into smaller, more achievable goals, then you can feel very lost, because the end goal can seem so far away. So when I was approaching Kilimanjaro, I ended up just like looking at my feet, and I literally just thought, right, one step in front of the other, one step in front of the other, one step in front of the other. And I just kind of started to forget about like the summit and forget about looking up at that end destination, and literally just focused like here and now in this specific moment, looking at my feet and just thinking constantly, one foot after the other. And if I follow that process, it is inevitable that I will eventually get to the summit. And entrepreneurship has kind of, I've learned that basically from entrepreneurship, from when I've had really challenging experiences, and I've thought, how am I going to like overcome this challenge? And then the approach has always just been, and I think it comes from my mum actually, my mum's always just said to me, like, what can you do in this specific moment in time? What's within your control right now? And just like strip it back into really manageable small steps. And if you just conquer each of those small steps, you do eventually get to that end destination and that end goal.
That's fantastic, and thank you for taking us. I can visually see that. Thank you for taking us on such a fantastic journey with you, during that experience. I'm going to back it up for a second. Was it you and a friend called each other and said, hey, what are you doing this Saturday? Let's go climb Kilimanjaro. How did you even position your interests or your thoughts in that? Or were you just looking for the next thing to conquer?
Oh, there's such a big backstory to this. So it actually goes back to probably when I was in high school. So when I was in high school, I wrote a list of like I basically call it my life list of things that I want to do in my life. And climb Kilimanjaro was on the life list.
Wow.
Climb to Everest Base Camp was also on the life list. Run a marathon has also been on the life list. Okay. So I actually, like, I've had that list, and I've over the years just gradually, you know, ticked things off. And then it was actually during COVID when I think COVID kind of taught me the lesson of how special like life actually is, I guess, and how, like, you know, things can change literally overnight. We can just be living our day-to-day lives, and then all of a sudden, like, something completely out with our control can happen, like the pandemic. And it just gave me, I think, a real, like, kind of eye-opening experience of, like, you know, you only get one life and you've got to make the most of it. So once things started to kind of open back up again on the back of the pandemic, I decided, right, see all these things that I've thought about that I would like to do in the future, I'm just going to, like, start knocking them over and just start setting these challenges for myself and just go and do it. Because otherwise, I think you can just sit there thinking, I'd like to do that one day, and that one day never comes. So you have to be proactive and actually go and do something about it. And yeah, that's the kind of backstory.
Yeah, I think COVID kind of set us down and repositioned our perspective on a lot of things. So, yeah. You know, I think my biggest thing was I was like, okay, I'm going to move to a different state. But, you know, some people say I'm going to climb one of the largest mountains in the world. So it really gave us an opportunity to show up for ourselves in a different way. Yeah. So when I see and you paint the great picture of the climb of up Kilimanjaro, as you know, Vicki, I mean, you know this firsthand, it requires a lot of physical and mental strength. So let's correlate that kind of with entrepreneurship. How does those demands prepare you for moments of uncertainty in a person's entrepreneurial journey? You know, just that physical, mental, I'll even also say emotional strength that's required in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so I think entrepreneurship really is a step into the unknown. It's a step into, just a step into the unknown. You don't really know what to expect. And I remember when I was graduating from university, and all my friends had, like, grad jobs that they were going on to do, and they had, like, a really kind of rounded idea. Well, they had a well-structured idea of, like, what their job was, what they were going to do, and what a potential career path might look like in that particular field. But, like, in the world of entrepreneurship, it's kind of like you just don't really know. Like, you've got an idea and you have the end goals. What I was talking about earlier with Kilimanjaro, you've got your summit. You know what your summit kind of is. You know where you want to get to. And it might be, in my case, it was getting the product into a store and being able to walk into that store and see the product on a shelf. But everyone that ventures into the world of entrepreneurship, they will have, like, a goal and a kind of long-term goal. And then those little smaller goals in between are much harder to kind of work out. But I think, like, again, just if you kind of reflect back to some of the learnings and ways that I've applied it in sport, it's like there is a process, and, like, you just have to kind of, like, follow that process. And there's a lot of really good business accelerators out there that have taken people with ideas through a process and got them to a point where they've got, like, an established business. And I think you just have to, like, surround yourself with good people that are going to support you and encourage you, and that's one of the most important things in entrepreneurship, just to be encouraged. And you will face obstacles and you will face challenges, but that's not the end of the journey. You have to just pivot and, like, learn how to manage and deal with those challenges. And you need good people that are experienced with, like, seeing other entrepreneurs experience those challenges around about you, to give you that kind of, do you know what, it's fine, these things have happened to other people, they will happen to other people in the future, let's just find a way around about this problem, let's just focus on what my mum said, what can you control in this specific moment to get you around that obstacle. And I think, I don't really know if that fully answers that question, but, like, everything has a process, and, like, you just have to find people that will help you with, like, getting you along that journey of that process to that end goal.
Yeah. I think it does answer the question, because when I correlate that entrepreneurial experience of surrounding yourself with the right people, because we can't do this alone, I'm assuming that's what had to happen on the mountain for you as well. You had to surround yourself with different people with different expert levels to kind of get you to that next step, and that next step on the mountain.
Yep, absolutely. And I think the other thing as well is like different stages of the journey might require you to surround yourself with different people. And that's something maybe just to be aware of. And again, if I reflect back to Kilimanjaro, like we started the climb as a group. I think there was 8 of us when we started that summit night. And about halfway up the mountain, like we realised that kind of we needed to split up into 2 groups basically, because one group, they kind of needed to approach it in a slightly different way from the other group. And if we'd all continued as like one group of 8, then none of us would have got to the summit. So we did, the guides basically split us up into 2 groups, and I was in one group and other people were in another group, and I think there was 4 in my group, and we got to the summit, and that was great. And then the other group got to the summit as well, but they did it like in a different way. And like I think that's something that's quite important, is like on the journey, not everyone is going to follow the exact same path, and you have to be ready to kind of like, again, pivot and adapt and listen to the advice around about you. You will still get to your end goal, and everyone, did still get to that end goal. We just had to, on the way, change our strategy, and that strategy involved splitting up into 2 groups.
Oh, that's so good, Vicki. It's really good. And, I use that a lot of times. I say success is like a mountain. As you get higher, you need different tools. The pressure is different. The air quality is different. So it requires a different set of people to kind of take you to that next level. So thank you so much for sharing that. Now, as we said, this episode is stepping into the dark. So we painted that picture of going up this dark mountain, like you said, taking it one step at a time. Now, can you share a specific moment in your entrepreneurial journey where you felt like you were actually in a dark space, but inevitably you were able to keep moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of them. Entrepreneurship, yeah. There's been a lot of moments where I've been like, oh, why am I doing this? But I think, like, for me, one of the hardest points in the whole journey, it was just after I'd started selling the product. So, as I said, my background is product design engineering, and I'm very much a kind of ideas, early stage product designer. Sales and marketing, something I didn't really have a huge amount of experience in. I probably went into it very naively with the kind of mindset of like, I'll just build it and they will come and it'll be fine, which I now realise was not the right mindset or attitude to have. That's one of my actually one of my like main learnings from the whole Recoil journey. So sales and marketing, not really my bag, not really my cup of tea. And then we'd started selling the product, and the first few weeks of selling the product, it was great because everyone that knew me and knew about the product over the last couple of years was buying it. So I was like, sales and marketing, this is easy, this is great. And then after a couple of weeks, the sales started to dip away, and I was like, okay, why is this happening? And I mean, the reason it was happening was because there was absolutely no sales and marketing activity going on whatsoever. There just wasn't anything really happening. We weren't even posting on social media. So of course, how are people going to know that this product even exists? So I had to very quickly learn a lot in a short space of time about sales and in particular digital marketing. And I did that just basically by getting as many kind of books on the topic as I could, reading as much as I could, going and speaking to as many people that I could possibly find that worked in marketing or were in a similar situation with their own business, and just very quickly tried to kind of upskill myself on the whole sales and marketing thing. And then it takes time. Marketing definitely takes time. People aren't just going to see your product once and then buy it. Usually it takes a couple of points of contact before someone converts to a paying customer. So it did take time, and basically we were just running out of cash. So I was like, right, I need to go and bootstrap this business. So bootstrapping is basically get another job, work that other job, and use the money that you make from that job to fund your business and your life. So I went back to where I used to work when I was still in school and still in uni. Went back to that store and said, have you got any part-time work that I can get involved in? So I ended up working part-time for them. So that was a 20-hour contract with them. And then I managed to get some part-time work in a product design consultancy, which again was about 30 hours a week. So I was working like about 50 hours between these two jobs plus doing Recoil. And like I think for about a year and a half, 2 years, it was literally just a case of like wake up in the morning and just work, and then bed. And that's why earlier I was saying like there was a point in time in the whole Recoil journey where I wasn't able to do much sport, and my sport kind of get pushed to the side. This is that particular time.
Yeah.
And it was just basically because like this is what I needed to do to survive. This is what I needed to do to like make the business work. And it was fine for the first like 6 months, a year, because I was like, right, okay, this is temporary. It's just keep going until like I've kind of upskilled myself on the whole sales and marketing. We've got some sales coming in. But it was slower, like the process, it was slower than what I thought it was going to be. And then probably about a year and a half in, I was like, how much longer can I like still keep doing this? Because it's also like really kind of difficult, I think, when you're working so much and like all that money that you're making from other jobs is just literally going straight into something that is going, like in my case, it was going to be used to pay other people, because at this point I was employing 2 people. So there was literally nothing for me at all. And I just felt like I'm working so hard, and I have no time and I can't do anything. And I think for me that was probably like the darkest moment in the whole journey. And it was probably the moment where there was lots of tears, there was lots of like, why am I doing this? And especially at that point in my life, I was like 26, 27. So a lot of my friends that I had been at uni with were now at the point where they were quite well established in their careers. They were like buying nice cars, buying houses, getting married, having kids, and I just felt like I was still really like stuck, and just I couldn't see any progress. I just couldn't see the light, couldn't see where I was going. And the thing that got me through it was actually just my investor and my mum, again, just being like, they were just like, you will, like, just stay positive, like, they just kept me kind of like, every time I felt like giving up, they were like, just keep going, like, one more day. And again, just focus on like, what can you do right in this specific moment, and try not to focus too much on like the end destination, and just focus on like, get through today, get through tomorrow, get through the next day. And eventually, again, just following that kind of process of like, okay, one day at a time, we did eventually get to a point where the revenue started to pick up, and we also got accepted onto an accelerator program based out of London, which was really quite transformational and really helpful, and yeah, it really pushed us forward to that point. So yeah, that was probably the hardest, deepest bit, and I think the thing that got me through it was people, surrounding yourself with good people, and that self-belief in the process, in that just focus on one day at a time, and eventually you'll get there.
Yeah, that's good. And thank you so much for being so transparent and sharing, those different moments in those dark times where you couldn't really see the light. But I love the fact that you had people around you and they were still able to see the light to sometimes, so you needed to lean on that. When you sometimes couldn't lean on yourself, like, oh my gosh, I'm just working and I'm just giving the money to somebody else. So, I always say that it always takes longer than what you expect, right?
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up this evening, I want to talk to you about, now we've looked at the bucket list, COVID happened, we've taken on this mountain, this entrepreneurial journey, one step at a time. We have the right team around us. I mean, you really painted a fantastic picture for us. And you've even went through those dark moments as well as you did on Mount Kilimanjaro as well. Now we're about staying grounded, right? So I wanted to really ask you, what practices or routines help you stay grounded and resilient, especially when you were going through those uncertain times, or even now as you're transitioning into different roles in the organization? Well,
that's a good question. I think the first thing is never take anything for granted. I won some business startup competitions way back at the start of the Recoil journey, and like the first one I won, for example, was like about £5,000 and then £50,000, and I remember that's a lot of money, but I never celebrated those wins, and I never got caught up in the wins, because don't take it for granted. And the other thing as well is like, it was great to win all those competitions, but like in a business world, that's not sales. Sales is like what you need for your business to survive. Winning competitions and winning grants, etc., is lovely because it helps you to get started on the journey. But like the end goal, the thing that you're aiming for is the sustainable business, and the way your business becomes sustainable is through sales. So I think, yeah, just you don't get caught up too much in the kind of, I don't really know what the correct word is here. Don't get caught up in like the kind of glory of like entrepreneurship, you know, and all the excitement that goes with entrepreneurship. Stay grounded and like focus on that goal of, I want a sustainable business. How am I going to do that? Sales. Because that's what's going to give you the reoccurring revenue to employ people and continue to do what you do. And never take anything for granted as well. Like those competitions, like when you apply for a competition, don't go into it with the mindset and expectation that you're going to win, because there's lots of great people out there with lots of great ideas, and you're just one of many, many people that have great ideas that want to go on that journey. So go into it with the mindset of, it would be lovely to win, and if I do win, that's great because it's going to do X, Y, and Z for my business. But also be prepared that if you don't win, still kind of like know that, okay, that's fine, I'm still going to do X, Y, and Z. It might just take me a little bit longer. So I think that's kind of two ways that I've approached things. And yeah, I also think like visualization is really, really helpful as well. Like this is something that I would really encourage anybody that is going on this entrepreneurial journey to do. And it's like, think about what your end goal is, and then like create some sort of visual of that end goal. So as an example, as I said, one of my end goals for Recoil was to get the product into a shelf, into a store and see it on a shelf. And I remember, so I used to work for a DIY store when I was a student, and I thought, wouldn't it be really cool if I could get the product into that DIY store that I used to work in? So I like created basically like this mock-up like receipt of like, and I put like the company like logo and stuff, and then the description of the goods and how much the product was. And it was like basically like this kind of fake vision of like, here's a receipt that I'm going to get one day from that store. Wow. when I've bought Recoil from that store. And yeah, had like the printed version of it, and that was kind of like my visual of like, where am I going, what am I aiming for? And I did actually achieve that, and I do now have the genuine receipt that is next to the kind of visual one that I created way back at the start of the journey. And yeah, it was quite cool. It's quite cool to see, like, so I think visualization is really helpful when you want to kind of remind yourself of what that end goal actually is.
Yeah. So when the dark times come, at least you can have something tangible to remind you, hey, you had a vision, you have a vision, stay the course, and eventually it will materialize. Yeah. Wow, that is fantastic. And how did you feel when you got that receipt and you set it next to the kind of the prototype receipt that you had? Were you kind of, was that a surreal moment for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was like a real moment of like pride in the whole journey, and pride to like what had been achieved. And it's a really good reminder as well, just I think like now as I'm kind of like going about my day-to-day life again, like whenever I set myself a goal and I think, oh, in fact, a good example right now is next year I want to do a triathlon, but I can barely swim to save myself right now. So this is one of the things that I'm really focused on, to try and like get better at swimming so that next year I can enable myself to do a triathlon. And right now the swimming part of a triathlon just seems so far away. Yeah. But when I like reflect back at one point in time, that home base, that was the store, like that receipt for my product in that store seemed so far away, but I got there and like I achieved it, and here's like the visual evidence of like what I dreamt and then what was actually achieved. And I know with triathlon, like it will eventually be the same thing. Like I will get there with my swimming, and I will eventually get to do a triathlon. It's just going to be like a long journey, and just have to focus.
Yeah, and look, you are someone that when you put your mind to it, you definitely not only do it, but you conquer it. So I can visually see you standing on the stage with first prize winner in your endeavors with your triathlon. I know you're going to kill it.
I don't know about first prize. Finishing it will be enough.
Look, dream big or go home. I say first prize. I'm thinking Guinness Book. That's what I'm thinking here now. Well, Vicki, it has been an absolute pleasure of you sharing your journey, not only as an entrepreneur, but also your adventures in life. You're so full of life. And I love the fact that you continue to raise the bar for yourself each and every time. So this has been a very inspiring conversation. Your story reminds us whether we're climbing a mountain or navigating entrepreneurship, it's about taking the next step forward. As you say, we'll focus on what you can do right now in this space, even if the path isn't fully visible. So I just wanted to sincerely thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and coming on our Skills Without Borders podcast.
No problem at all. I've enjoyed it. Thanks very much,
Thank
Andrea.
you so much. And well, that's a wrap for today's episode of our Skills Without Borders podcast, where passion meets purpose and professionals are empowered to thrive without limits. If you valued today's conversation, be sure to follow us on Apple's podcast or Spotify so you'll never miss an episode packed with insight and inspiration. And if you want to see the faces aligned with the voices, go ahead and subscribe to our Upskill YouTube channel for exclusive video content. Whether you're in healthcare, STEM, public health, or business, remember that your skills can take you to the new heights in your career. So until next time, stay bold, stay curious, and remember your skills are the bridge to a better future. So as I always say, keep soaring higher. See you next time.